Possible Chops podcast is a conversation about the source for inspiration and new ideas behind the drum set. Each episode explores the ins and outs of attaining and retaining a successful career in a very competitive industry. Join host Ronnie Gutierrez for episode 2, recorded June 19th, 2019. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, say hello to Eric Valentine in the studio. He's in the middle of producing. Say hi, Eric. How you doing,
everybody?
All right.
How you doing?
Very cool. That was really cool. Welcome everybody, PossibleChops.com. My name is Ronnie Gutierrez. I'm your host of our podcast. We're in the studio live with Eric Valentine. He's killing it, and we just heard a little taste of what he's been producing. Say hi everybody to Eric Valentine.
Hey everybody.
All right.
Good to see you all.
Excellent. Eric, give us a little history. I know you're from D.C., but give us just a little history of your background and how the sticks got in your hand and how you are today producing. Just give us a little background.
I'm from Washington, D.C., and I grew up listening to a lot of different music, gospel music, of course,
Awesome.
Jazz, lots of kinds of jazz and even rock. So it made my ear a lot diverse as far as listening to different kinds of music. And I started with this guy named Marcus Johnson years ago. And from doing that gig, it got me seen with a lot of other artists. And from word of mouth, I started working with Jonathan Butler, Patti LaBelle.
Can I cut you off there? Eric, There's a story I heard about you getting the Patti LaBelle gig.
Uh-huh.
Now, you had no gas to get back home. Is that it?
Something like that? Yeah.
Give us a little insight of that story, because that was the deal breaker. I mean, you were all in, right?
Yeah.
Super. Give us
So
a taste.
So I was auditioning. A friend of mine, Mark Stewart from the Baltimore area, had told me about there was an audition for Patti LaBelle, and at the time I was recovering from carpal tunnel.
Ooh.
And so and it was a low point in my life, and it was so I took a chance and went to the audition. It was about 40, 50 drummers there. I really didn't have a way to come back home, so I was planning to make it, not knowing it was 40, 50 drummers there. So I got there as a cattle call, and before I knew it, I had to stay the night in one of my buddy's rooms. My boy Ron Hubbard, he helped me out, and we stayed in I forget my man's name now, but we stayed in his room overnight. That was working with the crew, and the next thing you knew, they had me as the drummer for Patti LaBelle.
You got the gig.
Yeah, I got the gig, man, and it was beautiful. I was out of shape, but I was driven and determined to
Eric,
get it.
You're actually one of my favorite drummers. You have played with some of the greatest musicians. What about this guitarist that you toured with that we all know and love? You got that call.
Yeah. And the funny thing, I was playing with Warren Hill at the time, and Steve Weingart, amazing keyboardist, asked me to play with Steve Lukather from the band Toto. And so I had to learn a bunch of music, and we had an audition. Actually, before we didn't have an audition. Let me correct that. We had lunch. We had a hang, and after the hang, we just started playing music, and we just gelled together, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience. I learned so much about music and awareness with my fellow musicians by doing that gig.
I know a lot of the young guys want to know, how did you get your hands and feet together? Did you have a routine? Did you warm up? Did you practice? Were you diligent, or was it just the talent that you were born with?
Well, I mean, definitely there's God-given talent.
Amen.
That but there's skill as well, and I think you have to cultivate that, and that talent to make it a skill. And so I practiced a lot, because I got serious fairly late with what I thought was late, as far as other guys around me were already killing on drums. So it was a lot of focus, and a lot of discipline to just stay in the house and practice.
Right.
And I practiced a lot of hours, a lot of different exercises. Stick control was a good friend, still is a good friend of mine. Different exercises in there, a lot of different alternating combinations and things like that.
Excellent. Now, what is it like before a gig? How do you prep before a gig, a session? Like whether you get the music or you don't get the music, what is in your head when you got something really special coming up, or even if it's not so special, Eric? Like, how do you prep for a session or a gig?
Yeah, well, I think before I can present the music properly, I have to believe in myself and what I am, who I am as a musician.
Excellent.
And that I've put the time in to be able to present the best me possible. So that relieves a little bit of the stress for me going into a situation, because they're going to get the best performance of me. So once I do that, I can embrace the music better, and usually, still being humble enough to give the producer, the artist, what they need to hear, but being able to also present my energy to it as well.
That's excellent. Now let me ask you about your gear. Like, I noticed you're a Yamaha guy, and I noticed that everything that you do, you have really great stuff, from your sticks to your cymbals. Did that all come about from just people watching you and you got endorsements, or were you inspired by that product, or someone you saw play that stuff?
It definitely started with the inspiration of just like all of the companies that I use. I grew up playing those instruments, so I'm very happy with Yamaha. I remember back in the day, the Weckel drum set. I wanted to have one, the kit just like that with hanging toms, hanging floor toms, and everything. Vader drumsticks, and Zildjian cymbals, Remo drum heads. All of them I've had for, always used, even purchased, even still now. If I'm in somewhere, across the world and I can't get my shipment in, I got to do what I got to do, and I look for those companies.
So a lot of the questions come up, like, what is your hobbies, Eric? What do you do when you're not on the kit and you're not playing or producing or doing a gig somewhere, or a session, or a concert? What is your hobbies? What do you do to chill?
Be with my wife. Every free moment we have, that's available, that we try to be together as much as possible, man, and that's made me a better person. So that's my life.
So to some of the young guys coming up, what would you say to them? What would you want them to know about Eric Valentine, like as far as you're playing, and what would you drop in on them as far as where they want to get to, where they want to be on the drums and playing and having chops?
I would say the quicker that you can be focused on what you want to do and believe in that, the more you enjoy your journey as a musician. So if you can identify that, even if you don't end up being there at the end of the day, just knowing this is where I want to go about. If you're exploring, you're exploring. But be comfortable in that. I have to say, that I can remember gigs where I would say, depending on the gig, I would say, hey fellas, I'm just kind of experimenting right now. You know what I mean? Just bear with me. And it was cool enough that I was able to do it. Of course, it wasn't like in front of 10,000 people or something like that. But just be true to whatever you want to go after, and don't necessarily be looking for an audience to approve it.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Now, Eric, some of the guys that you were inspired by, like, give us a couple of guys' names, cats that you really, really like. You mentioned Weckel. Who else?
So Weckel, Vinnie Colaiuta,
sure.
Dennis Chambers, and then I remember listening to Lenny White. Especially musicality. He had a record, I think it was called Past Present Tense, and it was so musical, man, and that rocked me in a whole nother kind of way, because it wasn't just about chops, but it was about feel, and like, you could tell that Lenny wanted you to feel a certain kind of way, and he knew what to do to make that happen. And so that's what I push for now. It's like, if I want the listener to bob their head or feel the music a certain kind of way, I know what to do to make that happen. I'm being very intentional on my musicality rather than just, I ended up here.
Wow, yeah. So we're in your studio now, and you've been producing, and you do sessions. People send you files, and you're producing. What is that like? Like, your dream now? You've done every gig. I've worked with you. You're like great musician on the kit, and now you're branching, turning a corner to producing more. Where do you see yourself? What, like film, TV? What are you doing? How do you keep all that going and your chops up?
Well, in my world, I don't believe my job's up, but I guess a lot of practice prior to me getting to this point. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time. I wasn't hanging out a lot. I was practicing, and so that helped. Still helps me even now. That I don't spend as much time on the drums as far as practicing.
Right.
But I'm always in healthy situations. So being that I can't practice all the time, if you can't practice, don't put yourself in environments that don't help you. It's better to not be in any than to be in bad ones. Right. At least that's what I believe. So
Yeah. So like I've noticed you're very techie as well on the gig. You seem to be the lead guy when it comes to like airdropping charts in and all that. Was that hard for you to learn, or did you just know that this is something you had to, add to your arsenal?
It was necessary.
Right.
That's the word I used, and so I don't look at things hard. I can remember, just like my home studio. I have a very nice home studio, and when we elevated to moving to a commercial area, being here, I remember for a couple of days crying because I had put so much time into getting one area of my game together, and now I had to learn a whole nother kind of world. And and so I couldn't have fear or dictate hard.
Yeah.
It just it's part of my life experiences, and I have to give a shout out to my man Ryan Green, who's been so gracious, my partner here.
Awesome.
And he's been awesome with teaching me, and just I would say also with your drumming, don't just latch onto drums, but latch onto other instruments and learn them, because they help you to gel with the musicians.
Wow.
Like I play bass, I sing, I play a little bit of keyboards, a little bit of guitar. And all of those things help you to, when you're playing in an environment, to gel quickly with the musicians around you. You hear something going on from the guitar, and the bass is going on. Okay, this is the beat I need to play to make all this work quickly.
Right. Wow.
So, and the best guys can do that quickly. Like as soon as they start playing, whoa, there's the groove.
Right on. Yeah,
so.
your pocket is huge. Now, real quickly, we're gonna leave you. I know you got stuff to do. So just share with us what's next for you, Eric. Tell us what's next for you, and. I know you're married to a gorgeous woman, a very talented woman. You're going to have family. What's the next thing for you?
Well, on the music side of things, we're working on a couple of projects right now that will be released. One is with a band with a few musicians that are out there on the scene: Dominique Xavier, Benjamin Shepard, and Keith McKelly. And we're doing a very like a jam record that's really funky. That's what I was playing earlier. We're finishing it up after a couple of years, but everybody's been touring. I'm working on projects. My first album did really well. Thank you, everybody who looked out for me on that. And so now I'm producing other artists and on a lot of records, a lot of projects.
Super.
So it's a great time. Just look for me on IG and all social media.
Awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, practice. We're in the studio with Eric Valentine. We're going to let him finish producing. Thank you so very much. We'll see you next time. Eric, take care, my brother.
Right,
love you, man.
PossibleChops.com is an online drum lesson website that makes it easy to add to your drumming vocabulary from some of the best professional drummers. If you're serious about drumming, do yourself a favor and visit PossibleChops.com. Join today. Basic membership is free. When you decide to upgrade to a pro membership, use the promo code CHOPCAST to get your first month free.